class, this is Kelley. I'm going to start off by saying I hate videos and I hate presentations. So if I'm a little nervous and a little choppy with my words, that's why. But I am really excited to introduce this act to you guys that I did my project on. It is the Every Child Deserves a Family Act. This act is currently not a public law. It is still just a bill. It was first presented to Congress in 2011, again in 2013, and most recently in May of 2015. Traditionally, the issue that this act covers is the idea of adoption in the LGBT community. Traditionally, the most common viewpoint is that a lack of stability for a child is that there is a lack of stability for a child to be adopted by two people who weren't married. However, this summer, June 26, 2015, gay marriage was in fact legalized. And so you would think that this would no longer be an issue and that gay married people would be able to adopt without having any sort of issue. However, here is a story that I found that kind of broke my heart. So Becky and April were married 13 months before they were licensed by the state to take in foster children in Utah. They have two of their own biological children, and they began to foster a baby girl. After a year of having this baby in their home, they decided that they wanted to adopt her. With the permission and full disclosure of their family dynamics to the birth mother of this baby and to the Utah Division of Family and Children's Services, they were given support and approval for the adoption. When they went into the final process of the adoption, Judge Johansson stopped the adoption process from happening and said that the child would be better taken care of in a heterosexual household and must therefore be moved to a new household within 7 days of the judging. He based this decision off of studies that he would refuse to present as evidence. He was ridiculed for this decision, and he resided his order but set for another hearing later on this month to reassess the judging case. However, the baby was removed from Becky and April's home, and the adoption process was halted. So a description of the problem is the amount of kids in the foster system. In 2014, the Children's Bureau report said that there was a recorded 415,129 children in the foster system, with 264,746 entering the system and only 238,230 leaving the system that year. That means that there is a recorded 107,000 children waiting to be adopted, 60,000 children waiting for adoption whose parental rights had been terminated. There was a total of 24,357 kids that aged out of the foster system last year, which means that there was 24,357 kids that were never welcomed into a home of permanency and were left to maneuver through their young adulthood without families, guidance, shelter, or support. Another aspect of the problem that this act is addressing is the inability for homosexual couples to produce a family of their own. This leaves them dependent on in vitro adoption and foster care to create a family of their own. By nature of their own relationship, homosexual couples are more likely to serve as foster and adoptive parents than heterosexual couples. In fact, they're 4 times more likely to be raising adopted children and 6 times more likely to be raising foster children. This act also addresses discrimination in beliefs of homosexual families of what homosexual families would be like. There is a belief that gay people are unsuitable parents simply because of their homosexual lifestyle, that because they're interested in people of the same sex, that they would not be suitable parents. Today, there are about 2 million members of the LGBT community who express the deep desire to adopt or to foster children in need. So, in describing the policy, like I said, it was introduced to the House most recently on May 19th, 2015 by Representative John Lewis, Ileana Rose Lehtinen, and Kristen Gillibrand. The purpose of this act is to decrease the length of time that children wait for permanency for a loving family, and to promote the best interests of the child in child welfare systems by preventing discrimination in adoption and foster care placements based on sexual orientation, gender identity, or marital status. These purposes are achieved through the withholding of governmental finances to organizations that withhold or delay the adoptive and foster care process for members of the LGBT community. Through lack of funding, the corporations will either die out or end their discriminative acts to reinstate federal funding, thus distributing funding to facilities that will allow lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender men and women to become foster parents, increasing the amount of homes that foster and adoptive children can be welcomed into. The Every Child Deserves a Family Act mandates that the Department of Health and Human Services to provide enlightenment on the legal and practical changes that must be made for agencies to be in compliance with the bill. The bill also allows for anyone who has been discriminated against by a foster or adoptive agency to take judicial action against the company. And so, an analysis of this policy, when asking whether or not this was legal, the government has every right to take away funding from a corporation if a corporation is discriminating against any major member of our society. The goals that this policy portrays is contributing to the quality of life for the LGBT couples to have their own families, to be fruitful with those kids and to love on them and to produce the best help for them. And in that, it contributes to the quality of life for the parentless children. It has this hidden assumption that being gay is irrelevant to the type of parent one can be. And it also contributes to the quality of life for the community at large. As many children are placed in these homes, there is a greater chance for adoption, meaning there are less children that will age out of the foster system without being placed in a permanent home. This means that the statistics provided by the U.S. Administration of Children and Families, the U.S. Department of Justice, and the Casey Foundation, as well as the National Foster Care Coalition, the statistics that they give would not be instated, which is that 74% of former foster kids are incarcerated, 50% become pregnant, and 80% become on death row. So the more families that we get to take in these kids, the less likely they are to become one of these statistics. The feasibility. There are 90 representatives, 20 senators, and over 100 organizations that are in support of this bill. In regards to the fiscal resources that this bill dictates, it's a cry to better arrange those resources as opposed to calling for more. It also is looking to adjust some of the administrative resources in bringing about new things for the Department of Health and Human Services to do, which is bringing other laws and regulations into compliance with this act, bringing practices and procedures into compliance with the act, expanding and guiding the recruitment of all interested parties, LGBT and singles. It's providing cultural competency training for covered entities and for adoptive and foster parents, and it's training for the judges and attorneys that will now be instated into their job requirement. The strengths of this is that the LGBT community at large stands together, and there are hundreds of resources that have been produced for parenting as a gay couple, a lesbian couple, a bisexual couple, a transgender couple, and even single parenting within that. A lot of agencies are jumping on board with this. They see the possibility for more kids to be loved on, and they are jumping at the chance to take care of those families and to provide them with the best resources they can to help that family be as fruitful as possible. Globally speaking, there are about 30 countries in support of gay adoption, which includes Andorra, Argentina, Austria, Belgium, Brazil, Canada, Colombia, Denmark, Finland, France, Iceland, Ireland, Israel, Luxembourg, Malta, Mexico, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Portugal, South Africa, Spain, Sweden, the United Kingdom, and Uruguay. But this means that there are still over 150 other countries in the world that haven't completely legalized gay adoption. There are countries like Australia where sections of the country allow for it and others don't. But there are also countries like Russia that completely put up that as a huge no-no, a huge don't do this. The Russian Prime Minister signed a decree banning foreign same-sex couples, as well as single people from countries where same-sex marriages are legal, from adopting Russian children. And this was in 2014, just this last year. To give a little background, the banning of singles from adopting a child is to fully ensure that the parents won't go on later after the finalization of the adoption to enter into a gay marriage in another country. So now looking at the faith integration. I feel like James 1:27 is key in looking at this issue. Its true religion is this, that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless, to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. I feel like the ultimate focus of this issue ought to be the need of the children that are stuck in the foster and adoptive systems, and to take care of them the best we can with the best resources we can, which means these gay couples serve as a fantastic resource to show these kids love and to show them to show these kids support, to provide them with the things that they lack. I also found these other verses to be very helpful because I personally don't agree with gay marriage. However, I feel as if allowing these gay couples to adopt and take care of these kids is crucial. But a lot of times what happens is that people get caught up with the immoral lifestyle of gay couples. And to that, I found verses like 1 John 1:8 and Matthew 7:3 and James 4:12 that kind of give this response of not focusing on the speck in someone else's eye, but focusing on the plank in ours. To not focus on other people's sin, but to also look at our own. Passing judgment on the weight of other people's moral failures and deeming them in our own minds as unfit parents because of any presence of sin in their lives is hypocritical and in no way following the text on which Christians claim to establish their lives upon. The reality is all people, all parents, have one form or another of moral failure that is present throughout their lives. But that's not to say that because of those moral failures, it takes away from the parents' ability to provide love and care for their children in need. LGBT couples seeking to look after orphans are in fact doing the work of God, whether they are acknowledging Him or not. Again, this should be something that the faith community rejoices over, not something that we should try to stop. So, my own viewpoint, if it hasn't already been known, is that this should have been passed a long time ago. And even more so since the legalization of gay marriage has occurred. No set of parents are the same, but that doesn't take away from their ability to love their kids. I think that this act is rightfully named, that every child does deserve a family. And that's whether it's a gay set of parents or a straight set of parents, whatever the case may be, they deserve to be loved. Thanks for listening. Enjoy.